All right, more now on that new deal between Google and Verizon Wireless and what it means for Apple and research in motion. Brian Marshall is an analyst at Broadpoint AmTech and joins us from our San Francisco newsroom. Brian, thanks for coming to the show. I got to ask first how tough it's going to be to push out iPhone from the sort of consumer smartphone segment and Blackberry from the business smartphone segment. It seems like they both have a pretty tight hold.
Yeah, I think that's the case, actually. These guys are very well entrenched, both in the consumer as well as the enterprise markets. And so for Google and Verizon to think that, their initiative or coalition, if you will, is going to increase the competition and push those guys out of their current catbird seats, I think that that's highly unlikely, in my opinion.
So, Brian, Apple has nothing to worry about here?
Well, if I was Apple, certainly they worry about Google. I mean, those guys are obviously done a very good job and get into a lot of different businesses. I would obviously have a very close watch on what Google is doing. But at the end of the day, I think Apple is the most unique. They have the most unique capability of integrating an elegant hardware and a software solution in one smartphone. And so I think that's what's really propelled their success. Is the combination of those two factors, and I don't see anybody else on the planet that can successfully compete against them currently.
Is Verizon really the right partner here for Google? I mean, when you think of Google, obviously think of a very smart, very innovative, very young company with a strong product offering. Do you think the same thing when you think of Verizon?
I think that Verizon definitely has the best reputation in terms of the networks in the United States. They've got north of 85 million subscribers, and so they are the biggest, by a small margin above AT&T. But their network quality is far superior. Their coverage is much broader, reception is much better, fewer drop calls, faster download speeds. So if there's one network that you'd want to partner with, in my opinion, it would be Verizon.
All right, what about, though, Google's Android operating system, Brian? I mean, what's really the potential here with this?
Well, it's a pretty elegant solution. They've got roughly 10,000 applications currently supporting the platform. So that's number two behind, obviously, Apple's App Store that has north of 85,000. And so, they've got a great OS for the mobile market. Now, the question is anybody going to be able to generate and design nice form factor smartphone handsets, hardware, if you will? The first company to do that with the Android product was an Asian OEM called HTC. Unfortunately, they had to negatively pre-announce their second half a couple months ago because of lower than expected demand from the Android-based handset. So it remains to be seen how well this is going to be well received by the investment or by the corporate community, consumer community, if you will.
As far as the consumers, I mean, is the obvious target the kids here? Because the iPhone may be a little bit expensive for the kids, and they don't need to hook up to their corporate networks.
Well, the target market remains to be seen. I think with the applications currently, a lot of them are focused on consumer applications, and so one might draw the conclusion that this is really a consumer-focused product as opposed to business applications. I think currently the iPhone actually is probably the far superior platform from an enterprise application perspective, and so I do think that the Android market will be largely focused on consumer, and I think the iPhone will have success in both consumer as well as the enterprise markets.
Brian, you talked about Apple and kind of the position it's in. I mean, these combinations, Verizon and Google, AT&T and Apple, Sprint, Nextel, and Palms Pre. I mean, who's kind of at the bottom of the barrel here in your view?
Who's the bottom of the barrel?
Yeah.
Well, I think that if you look at the application development support that the platforms have, you'd probably have to say that the Palm Pre and the Sprint network is probably running in last place at this point. Clearly, Apple with the iPhone and AT&T are in the pole position. I think what's really going to be an interesting opportunity for Apple is when they open up to Verizon, and I expect that to happen potentially mid of next year if Apple is willing to support an LTE, long-term evolution phone. And so that would be a very, very significant positive catalyst for Verizon as well as Apple.
All right, hey, Brian, thanks so much for joining us. Brian Marshall there, analyst at Broadpoint AmTech.